All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kabbalah Coffee. So this is a very special day, very special Sunday. It is the first Kabbalah Coffee session after the Tishrei holiday season. So it's not the first Kabbalah Coffee session of 5780. We've had some in 5780, but it is the first after the holidays have formally concluded. When I say holidays, what I mean are the holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, but who's counting? So it's a great time to start a new course of study, and furthermore, I will say that the specific topic that we're exploring is very significant, and I'll tell you why it is. But first, I need to begin with the requisite joke. What is the joke? The joke is about the Jewish guy who's stranded on an island. Right, you know this one. Yeah, stranded on an island, and 20 years later he's rescued, and he's showing his rescuers around the island, and he's showing them, this is where I ate, and this is where I caught fish, and this is where I did this, and this is where I did that. Right, all this stuff. And then he shows him two buildings, two synagogue buildings. He says, why do you need two synagogue buildings? This is the synagogue I go to, and this is the one, help me out here with the punchline, I'd never step foot into. Right? That's the joke. Or the joke is that every Jew has three synagogues. The one they go to, the one they used to go to, and the one that, again, they would never step foot into. Now, it's a joke, but every joke is, of course, based on some sort of truth. Right? There's some sort of truth here that this is based on. And what is the truth? The truth is that even within our community, things are not always as frictionless or friction-free as perhaps we would like it to be. In other words, whereas the teaching in the Torah, v'yahavta l'reacha kamocha, which is love your fellow as yourself, whereas that teaching is in the language of Rabbi Akiva in the Talmud, that teaching is Zeh Klal Gadol BaTorah. This is the great principle of the Torah, right? Whereas that's what's the great principle of the Torah, to the extent that a few generations earlier, when the fellow who wanted to convert to Judaism asked Hillel, the elder, the great Hillel, right? Teach me Torah on one foot. What did Hillel say? What is hateful to you, don't do unto others, which is the opposite of love your fellow as yourself. It's more pragmatic, I think. Because what does it mean to love your fellow as yourself? Simple. Don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself, right? That's the practical application of it. So Hillel tells this fellow, you want to know what Judaism is? Treat others as you want to be treated. Don't treat others as you don't want to be treated. Zeh kol haTorah, this is the whole Torah, he says. Now go learn, right? But this is it. The rest is commentary, he says. I think it says Zeh kol haTorah, v'idach pirushahi, the rest is commentary. He says, now go and learn. So what does it mean? What it means is that the concept of love, now I think the word love we might think in the context of a romantic relationship. No, I mean love in the sense of getting along with someone else. Getting along with someone else, getting along with a neighbor, getting along with a community member, getting along with another person, another human being. This is a primary instruction and value in Torah. You don't have Judaism without this notion of loving your fellow, loving the other person, getting along with the other person. So here's the problem. We live in a society today, and I'm not speaking about any specific thing, but we live in a society today where the modality of our society is friction and tension. We live in a society where we're looking for the next conflict. When I say we, conflict is king. Everyone's about the conflict, right? Conflict is what's promoted. And again, it may be in higher profile situations, but it filters down to our everyday interactions. Are we looking immediately to judge others favorably? Or do we most immediately look to criticize and condemn and create conflict? And again, I'm not speaking in global terms, I'm speaking in very local terms. Right? Do we attribute best intentions first, or do we attribute worst case scenario first? Worst intentions first? It's a question. It's a question I ask myself. It's a question that I see comes up in many different areas. I'm not speaking about bigger stuff. When I say bigger stuff, I mean on a national scale. I'm speaking because unless that's your job, unless that's your thing, then it's about how we live our lives and the people that we interact with on a regular basis. And the question is very simple. Do we look to create commonality, friendship, fraternity, brotherhood, sisterhood? Do we look to create connections from a place of love and togetherness, or are we looking to kind of create separation and distance and conflict? That's the question. That's the question we can ask ourselves. And so this text, which was originally authored 121 years ago, and I'll tell you the story behind the authoring of this text, because it is phenomenal. This text, which was originally authored almost exactly 121 years ago, is all about understanding the origins of hate. And hate is a strong word, but it's more like, that's the language that's used, sinat chinam, baseless hatred. But it's about analyzing the origins of conflict, animosity toward another, dislike, if we don't like the word hate, because it's strong, right? Dislike, discomfort with someone else, analyzing the source of that, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, Kabbalistically, and then providing tools for building more trust and love amongst us. And I think that of the topics that we could explore in a class like this, topic that is as, in my opinion, important as this topic, emphasizing the need to love the other person. And I want to share the following. This is a letter. This is a letter. You don't have this. I mean, it's fine. You can look through whatever you have. But this is. I don't. You won't find this. I don't want to take away any fun and exploration. I don't want to be that guy. But you don't have it. I have it. This is a letter that was written by the previous Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who passed away in 1950. He wrote this letter in 1921 from the city of Rostov. You know where Rostov is? Yeah. Rostov, Ukraine, yeah. Ukraine, Russia. Depends who you ask, right? Ask Putin. I hope no one from Russia is watching. Of course it's Russia. All right, so Rostov. Rostov is where, right? Sam knows these things. All right, so Rostov. This letter is dated ER2, second day of ER, 5681. I'm not going to read the whole letter, but I want to read what is pertinent to our conversation. For this is the one, he's writing this to the Chabad community. For this is the one thing that has remained intact for us in our world. The love and comradeship. Sounds very Soviet. 1921, this is post-revolution. By the way, the communists were not fond of the previous Rebbe. In fact, they kicked him out of the country after they wanted to kill him. But whatever. So that was in 1927. This is before that. So again, this is the one thing that has remained intact for us in our world, the love and comradeship between our brethren. it should be, listen to these words, it should be so very precious and beloved and pleasurable a thing to hear good news of another, to share in a friend's joy and well-being, to participate equally with him in all things that may happen by divine providence, to inspire and to remind him to perceive everything with a discerning eye, and at times also to fortify his heart and mind to ensure that he remains physically unaffected by matters that appear to be the opposite of good, God forbid. See what he's saying? Imagine a community where when someone has a success, when someone has a joyous occasion, you feel good about it. Not, God forbid, why did they get the promotion and not me? Imagine that. Imagine that type of community where when the other person succeeds, instead of others looking with an ayin hara, with a negative eye, even though the person would never tell anyone what's in their heart of hearts, but we know what's in our heart of hearts. Instead of feeling on any level of our being, any sense of negativity, judgment, whatever it is toward the other person for their success, we feel only love. Their joy is our joy. Their blessing is our blessing. Truly not lip service. Not like because we know that's what we're supposed to say. But we feel it. Imagine that. Imagine that dynamic. When somebody has a moment of divine providence, something amazing happens. It's amazing to you as well. It's like, wow, and you feel it like it happened to you. And if somebody's going through a hard time, you feel it as well. And their pain is your pain. And not because you don't have your own sorrows or because you're trying to co-opt someone else's life. No, but because you're really empathetic. You really feel their pain and you try to help them see things perhaps from a different perspective and remain stronger despite the challenge. This is the type of community, the type of communal relationship that is held that is held as the standard in the Hasidic community. A community in which people genuinely care about the other. And if someone's going through a hard time, the community steps up. And when I say the community, I don't mean some anonymous community, but you step up, I step up, because we care about the other person. This is a completely different model of community than the model in which we don't know our neighbors, we don't want to know our neighbors, the less we have to do with them, frankly, the better, right? And that's it. I do my thing, you do your thing. I don't care what happens to you, you don't care what happens to me. And life goes on, right? We live in a world today, I know it's much bigger than it was maybe in Rostov in 1921. It's bigger. It doesn't always have to be bigger. Not everything has to be bigger. Bigger is not always more ideal. We live in a more global world, so we know what's happening. And it's hard to have close relationships with all 5,000 friends on Facebook that you might have. Right? It's not possible. So forget Facebook for a moment. And let's think about, or maybe don't forget, either forget Facebook or don't forget Facebook. It's not really important what platform it is. The point here is that we should strive to have close, loving relationships with others. And this, to me, this is a great paradigm shift. This is a great shift in the way society looks at others today. And I don't know when it started. I have my suspicion important to create this type of conflict. But I think it's killing us on an individual basis. And again, I'm not speaking on a national level, although I'm speaking about a bigger level now, but the notion of the outrage and the criticism and this and that, and yes, things need to be criticized when they need to be criticized. But not always is criticism the first approach. When I say first approach, what I mean is, are we approaching the other person from a place of love and curiosity and trying to understand who they are and what they're saying or what they're doing, or are we jumping in with guns blazing? So I think that, again, especially today, it's important to explore this topic, which is incredible, because it takes a very pragmatic topic, lifts it up to the cosmic realms, Kabbalistically, mystically, dimensions of the soul, and then brings it down into a very practical way. So that's introduction number one. Introduction number two, the context of when this was authored. I mentioned before, how many years ago, who remembers what I said? 1921. That was the letter, 1921, about the value of camaraderie and brotherhood. But when was this authored? 121 years ago. What's the year? 121 years ago? help me out. 1898. Good, 1898. This was Simchat Torah, 4 a.m. 4 a.m., the night of Simchat Torah. So Simchat Torah we just celebrated this past Tuesday. So it would have been the Monday night of the Tuesday, right? So the eve of Simchat Torah, which leads into the day of. So this is not, it's 4 a.m., so I guess...
This is the 10 hours when you're parking.
Yeah, you need 10 hours. Yes. Actually, maybe even a little bit longer. So it's 4 a.m. It's 4 a.m. Give me a second. Now, you may know this, but on Simchat Torah, the custom is that we take out the Torahs and we dance. We dance till we can't dance, because the Torah wants to dance, but the Torah doesn't have legs. So we become the legs of the Torah. And we dance with the Torah, because the Torah itself wants to rejoice. There are 7 rounds of dancing. I don't know if that needs to be plural. 7 rounds? No, 7 rounds of dancing that are done on Simchat Torah. They're known as hakafot. Hakafa means a circuit. 7 hakafot means 7 circuits. But trust me, around the bima would be the BMW. No, I'm kidding. The bima. Right? The bima. Pull out the bima. The bima is that table right there. The lectern is more of the stender, right? The bima is like a platform where you read the Torah on. It can either be a raised platform with a table, or we just have that. Okay, so you dance around the bima, but you don't just go around 7 times. You do 7 dance segments, if you will. I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it. But each one has many, unless you're going really slow, right? You're going to be going around many times. So it's 4 a.m. It's 4 a.m. It was probably then in 1898, probably the town of Lubavitch in Belarus, in White Russia. That's why Chabad Lubavitch. Chabad is the philosophy. Lubavitch was the town that it was headquartered in, the Chabad movement, for a number of years. So it took on that name. Many Hasidic groups took on the name of the city that they were from. Satmar Bells, etc. They took on the name of the city. So Lubavitch also took on the name, although today, again, Chabad is also a very popular way of referring to the movement. So in the city of Lubavitch, I believe, the 5th Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Shalom Dovber Schneerson, was the Rebbe at the time. He was the father of the aforementioned Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the 5th Chabad Rebbe. And it was 4 a.m. and they were up to the 7th Hakafa. And he makes an announcement. He says, we are officially launching the Chabad Yeshiva. A place where, in addition to studying what's known as Nigla, which means the revealed aspects of Torah, Jewish law, the Talmud, Scripture, in addition to the revealed parts of Torah, this yeshiva is going to teach, in a systematic way, the secrets of Torah, Kabbalah, Hasidic philosophy, etc. This is going to be a yeshiva in which 1/3 of the day is dedicated to the study of the secrets of Torah, mysticism, and 2/3 of the day will be devoted to Talmud study and Jewish law and the revealed parts of Torah. But moreover, in addition to having a more inclusive curriculum, in addition to that, this yeshiva is going to be a yeshiva in which the two complement each other. When you study Talmud, you'll be able to see the secrets of Torah inside the Talmud. And when you study the secrets of Torah, you'll be able to see the practical application in everyday life. So it's going to be not only inclusive, but it's going to be interwoven. The two are going to be working together. The secrets and the revealed parts of Torah are going to work in harmony together in this yeshiva. And then he read the 7th Hakafa, and it goes like this. Kadosh v'noira ha'yeshiana Rachum v'chanun hatzlichana Shomer habris aneinu v'yom kareinu. And those mean, holy and awesome one, deliver us. Referring to God. Merciful and gracious one, grant us success. Keeper of the covenant, answer us on the day we call. And then it continues. He goes in the alphabet. The last letter, Taf, has 3 stanzas. Taimech temimim ha'yeshiana takif lo'ad hatzlichana Tamim b'maisav aneinu v'yom kareinu. And those are translated as, supporter of the sincere ones, deliver us. Eternally invincible one, grant us success. Perfect in his ways, answer us on the day we call. One of those lines, if you heard it, when I said the first of the tough lines, is Tomech Temimim. And at that point, this is now after 4 a.m., I think after they finish this dance, or maybe in the middle of this 7th dance, the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Rebbe, said, and the name of the yeshiva is going to be called Tomchei Temimim. Tomchei Temimim, which is supporters of the sincere ones. Something like that. Tomchei Temimim. And the students are going to be called Temimim, which means sincere. And thus was launched the Chabad Yeshiva, known till today as Tomchei Temimim. The Chabad Lubavitch Yeshiva system is known as Tomchei Temimim. And it was launched 121 years ago on Simchat Torah night. The next day, Simchat Torah day, is when the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Rebbe, taught the first 20 chapters of Hecholzu, of the discourse that we're about to start studying. And it was on this momentous Simchat Torah that the Chabad Yeshiva system was launched, a yeshiva system that was predicated on the weaving together of the mystical and the pragmatic. And it was also on this day that the Rebbe Rashab, the founder of this yeshiva system, spent, I don't know how long it took him to deliver it orally, but recited, the first 20 chapters of this discourse known again as Hecholzu, which talks about love, how to love the other. And to me, it's no surprise that one of the tenets, the most important tenets within Chabad as a movement is Ahavas Yisrael, love of a fellow. This is not exclusive to Chabad, of course. This is an overarching Jewish obligation and Jewish tenet. But I'm not speaking about myself. I'll speak about the movement. I don't know of a movement in which there was a conscious effort. I'll speak about the Rebbe. I'll focus on my Rebbe, the 7th Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, passed away in 1994, who dedicated his life to sending out Chabad families, Chabad couples around the world in order to support Jewish life. It wasn't enough to build a strong local community in Brooklyn and Crown Heights, which is the normative way to build up a community, build up your local community. The Rebbe cared if there was a mikveh in Tasmania. Who thinks about these things, right? Who has it? But if you really love the other, then you can't be satisfied by the fact that you have resources where you are, you really care that the Jew traveling through the outback in Australia should have other, whoever it is, other folks there that can give them some kosher food. And when you're traveling through JFK Airport, there's someone there ready to wrap tefillin with you. Or when you're in the streets of Manhattan, going to a lunch, running from your work to a lunch kiosk, on the way you should see a massive RV known in Chabad parlance as a mikveh tank. You've seen those mikveh tanks?
Yeah.
Mitzvah mobiles. The Rebbe called it mitzvah tanks. The Rebbe called it tanks. He says we're fighting to bring light into it. Why? That's another discussion. Okay, mitzvah tank. That would be something else. It's actually hilarious. That would be a big body of water. It'd be like a dunk tank. A mitzvah tank in which you can walk in and study some Torah, wrap tefillin, get some Shabbos candles, get hooked up, right? Maybe get a mezuzah, whatever it is. Whatever you walk in, here it is. Here's your one-stop shop. Mobile, on wheels. To me, what I'm saying, and maybe you heard me say it before, but I'll just kind of close this up. What I'm saying is, to me, and this is my own kind of analysis on it, what happened on Simchat Torah 121 years ago, the founding of the Chabad Yeshiva system, and the launching of this text are not two random things that happen both on the same day, but they're very much intertwined, and they very much, I think, influence the Chabad perspective. So I don't think that there's, I can't imagine a better, when I say better, I mean I'm not ranking texts, but I couldn't have thought of a better text to launch for Kabbalah Coffee the Sunday after Simchat Torah, at a time like this when friction, tension amongst people is unfortunately very high. I can't think of a better text to study than the text that we have in front of us. Make sense? Those are my intros. Now, let's jump into the text. So this is, you do have this. So this is, you can feel free to look. This is page number 1. Let's jump into this. This is, like I said, in the Hebrew, it's called Heicholtzu. I've termed this in English, what did I call this? How to love, or how to love others? What did I call it? How to love? Yeah. I was debating, because how to love almost sounds like a relationship thing. It's not about a romantic relationship, although it could be also, but this is more about, people love globally.
There was a connection. The Russian word for love is lubi.
Yeah. Lubavitch means in Russian, great.
Yeah.
City of love. Lubavitch is city of love. Oh, and by the way, that's a great point. City of love.
That is wild.
Right?
That's where my grandparents were from. City
Luba.
Luba.
Luba is love.
Yeah.
In Ukraine. Wait, not Lubavitch.
Luba.
Vitch?
Maybe
Vitch. I feel like, again, Sesame Street. Luba, Vitch. Luba, Vitch. Lubavitch.
Kind of like the commercial, bad, the world,
Yeah. You don't see those commercials anymore. All right, so let's discuss these things. It's very important. Again, I think sometimes we try to think too big, it becomes too disconnected. This is really about you and I. This is about us. You and I right here, us right here in this room. It's not a critical question, but how do we work on getting to know each other better, caring about each other more, developing friendships and camaraderie? It's all about creating camaraderie. This is what this text is about, exploring why sometimes that's not the case, the challenges to feeling that love, and how we can work on that, on solving that. Does someone have a question over here? Did I see a hand go up? No. Okay. All right. If anybody's wondering what was happening outside with the kids, they were planting daffodils. The Daffodil Project. Anybody familiar with that? With the Daffodil Project? It's in memory of the 6 million. The goal is to plant 6 million daffodils. They're yellow. They look kind of like a star-like. It's a beautiful project. I believe it's local, right? It's a local project.
You do it in a Federation building.
I'm saying, but it started locally. I think. Okay, I can't say definitively. I thought it may have launched locally. Now I think it's bigger than this. It is national. Okay, so maybe it did start here. Maybe there's a local chapter, but it's a really cool thing. So we had our oldest 3 Hebrew school classes participate in that, and the younger classes are painting rocks for the rock garden, and it should be outside right here in the front. So if you come by and you see how beautiful it is, so now you know the significance.
Rabbi,
We got to share more love in the world. Yeah.
I think that just thinking about what you're saying is that there are pockets around the world where this actually occurs, and I'm struggling to remember where this is, but there is a small community, and I know it's not in the U.S. And at birth, everyone is given a song. And when there is a struggle during their time, when there's something actually that they do that's not well, something rather than being punished, the community gathers around the individual and sings the song to them.
Wow.
To try to heal them. And that's done in celebration, and it's also done in healing.
That's incredible.
I think that there do exist
Wow.
remote pockets around the world where that's realized.
That's amazing. That's really
Taking
touching.
it to scale.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing. I think that I would encourage us to not necessarily think yet about scale, but to think about our own lives. Again, I think we live in a time when just tension overall is high, and that affects us as individuals. Like, we're driving, something doesn't go right, we get very tense. But listen, this course is all about dealing with tension, anxiety, negative feelings. It's starting in next week, warrior to warrior. But this is more focused on love and camaraderie. But I think it's all part of the same conversation. But yeah, how to scale it? Let's see.
I don't mean scaling.
I know what you mean.
In that sense too.
How to
I
move it
think
from
it's-
that pocket to.
Yeah, I think it's our own lives, but I personally just believe that we also have a responsibility, even if it's one other person in our life,
Yep.
another person to try to take it beyond just what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's jump in. Now, here's the context. Well, I'm not going to give you the context. Let's just jump in. We're going to start off with a quote. Every mystical text, not every, but many mystical texts have what's called a passport in slang, Hasidic slang, and that means there's a way to get into the conversation. You don't just jump right into the heart of the conversation, but you start off, you cite something from the Torah, usually some verses from the Torah, ask some questions, and that launches you into the conversation, to the deeper discussion. So that's kind of like the port of entry into the larger conversation. This is the opening few lines. And God spoke to Moses saying, exact the retribution of the people of Israel from the Midianites. Well, this is a very loving start. Exact the retribution of the people of Israel from the Midianites. Afterwards, you shall be gathered to your people. I'm going to explain all of this, but let me just read this first. And Moses spoke to the people, saying, arm men for the army from among yourselves, that they may go against Midian, to exact the retribution of God from Midian, 1,000 per tribe for all the tribes of Israel. So what's going on? So here's the historical context. This is at the end of the 40 years of wandering after post-Exodus from Egypt. So the Jewish people left Egypt in the Jewish year 2448. This is now 2488, 40 years later, and the Jews have successfully gone in a bit of a circle for the last 40 years. Immediately after the Exodus, they went from Egypt to the Sinai Desert, which is a bit of a hike. Then they were poised then to enter the land of Israel from the south, but that was not meant to be. There was a few things that happened where God said, all right, we're going to put this on hold for 40 years. Your children will be the ones to go into the land, and indeed that's what happened. 40 years later was when that previous generation, the generation of adults that had left Egypt, had passed away, and their children now were the ones to enter the land of Israel. Famously, Moses was also told that he was going to share the fate of the generation that he took out of Egypt, which is that he would pass on before entering the promised land, and it would only be his successor, Joshua, who would be the one to lead the Jewish people into the promised land. He prayed to God many times that he should be allowed into the land, and God said, no, your fate is with your people, and you will pass away on the other side of the Jordan River. Now, the last few weeks or months before his passing, the Jewish people made a beeline for the land of Israel. Instead of approaching it from the south, they went along the eastern side of Israel and approached it from kind of like the northeastern side. That's how they went, right, kind of like this way, right there. If we were doing football plays, right, it would be like, okay, so you start off over here, boom, do a little bit of a circle, I'll fake a pass, then you go boom right there. And I'll hit you right there, that's the promised land. Hey, it is Sunday somewhere. Okay, for those of you that don't get the reference, don't worry, I don't get it either. No, I'm kidding, I do. All right, so that's what was going on. And along the way, the Jewish people tried to stay out of trouble. And what I mean by staying out of trouble is they were not in the business of taking over any of these other lands. They were just going through until they got to the land of Israel, and then they were going to be doing the task of conquering the land, so to speak, and taking the land as promised to Abraham. But again, along the way, the task was basically and essentially to get to the land of Israel, to go through the land. So the Jewish people sent out messages saying, can we pass through your land? We mean no harm, no war, no battle, just coming through. In fact, we'll support the local economy. We have a lot of people to feed, Jews and food. It's a real thing. So it's like, yeah, we're going to eat. We're like 2-3 million people. There's going to be a lot of brisket, a lot of bagels, a lot of lox. You guys are going to make a killing on us. Charge us retail. We'll pay it. We're hungry. So, and some nations said fine, and some said no, you can't go through. And so when that happened, the Jews would go around. They keep on going around, circumventing those lands. Well, some nations came out with arms to fight. And when that happened, the Jews had to defend themselves because they were attacked, and they defended themselves, and God blessed them, and they were victorious. There was one nation, a few nations, Ammon, Moab, Midian, a few nations that were a bit hostile to the Jewish people. In fact, a few of them hired an evil prophet. You may know this story. The prophet's name was Balaam. Balaam was a prophet for profit, so he was ready to be hired out to curse and to bring about devastation. He was like, like a voodoo doll type thing or something. I'm sure there's a better form of that, right? Maybe more effective. But he was like going to create a curse and that would bring about the downfall of the Jewish people. Well, that didn't work famously. He tries three times to curse the Jewish people, and each time when he opens his mouth to curse, out comes blessings, is transformed into blessings, and then he gives a fourth blessing on his own accord, whatever. But at the end of that narrative, this is told in the book of Numbers, at the end of that narrative, Balaam gives a piece of advice. He says, there is one way to bring about the downfall of the Jewish people. My curse thing is not working, but there is one way. Entice the Jewish men into sin, into idolatry. And that will get God upset, and that will cause havoc amongst the Jewish camp. And so, the nation of Midian sent out its young women to entice the Jewish men into acts of immorality as well as idolatry. And it worked to a certain extent, to the point that there was a leader of one of the tribal leaders, who was brazenly sinning immorality and idolatry with one of these Midianite princesses, to the point that there was a fellow named Pinchas who, all of this is told in the book of Numbers, and you can see. This is after that. So, and at that point, there was an act of zealotry by a fellow named Pinchas that put an end to the negative actions, and put an end to a plague broke out, and many Jews died in that plague because of what happened. And then in the aftermath of that, that's where this command comes in. God says to Moses, the Midianites try to destroy you, right? Not necessarily through swords, but through other means, through challenging or trying to compromise your integrity, your spiritual and moral integrity. And therefore, it's time to now fight back against Midian. You have to fight now against the Midianites. Again, God says to Moses, exact the retribution of the people of Israel from the Midianites. And then he says, afterwards you shall be gathered to your people. You know what that means, afterwards you shall be gathered to your people? What is that a euphemism of? Afterwards you will be gathered to your people means you will pass away. He says, fight, this is going to be your last battle. Exact the retribution of the Israelites against the Midianites, and afterwards you shall be gathered to your people, i.e., you're going to go the way of all people, i.e., you will pass away. So Moses, the faithful shepherd, the faithful leader, goes immediately to the Jewish people. You would imagine, if it's tied up to mortality, you would say, all right, we'll do it next year. Because now we know that after that war, after that battle, he's going to pass away. So you would imagine, he would take some time, go on vacation, some desert springs. But no. He goes immediately. Moses spoke to the people. And the understanding is, immediately he turns around and says to the people, this is what I got. God said, right? He doesn't quote God, but he says, are men for the army from among yourselves, that they may go against Midian, to exact the retribution of God from Midian, 1,000 per tribe for all the tribes. So 12 tribes, 1,000 per tribe. How large was this army? 12,000. Okay. And indeed they go into battle, they're successful, and shortly afterwards is Moses preparing for his passing. And the book of Deuteronomy, the book that follows this, book of Numbers, this is toward the end of the book of Numbers, immediately begins the book of Deuteronomy. Book of Deuteronomy is the last 37 days of Moses' life, where he speaks to the people and encourages them, and then he passes away, which we read about on Simchat Torah, his passing, and that's how the Torah concludes. Let's begin the analysis. It is necessary, so now we're inside the actual discourse. It is necessary to understand the relationship between the war against Midian and the death of Moshe. In other words, he's asking a question in a subtle way. That's the way the questions are asked in the Hasidic discourses. He's asking a question. What's the relationship between this war, right, against Midian and his passing? The above verse, or verses, seem to indicate that the two are interdependent. For only after Moshe takes retribution of the Midianites will he be, quote, gathered to his people. So clearly there's some sort of correlation, some sort of connection between this war against Midian and the passing, the death of Moses. And the question is, what is that connection? He says, furthermore, this can be understood in two different ways. Let's jump into this now. Two inferences can be drawn from this verse. First, the war against Midian had to be waged specifically by Moshe, by Moses. In other words, what we understand from this passage is that God is saying that the war has to be led by Moses. It can't wait till Moses passes away. And for Joshua to lead the battle, no, it has to be done by Moses. Hence, although his death, Moses' death, had already been decreed, as stated previously in the Torah portion of Pinchas, which is 4 chapters earlier, it says, God said to Moses, go up to Mount Avarim and be gathered, i.e. pass away, as Aaron your brother was gathered. Gathered is a biblical euphemism for passing. Pass away as your brother passed away, Aaron, who passed away a little bit prior to that. So although his death was imminent and already foretold by God 4 chapters prior to this, predetermined, and right, he was nevertheless given time to first wage war against Midian. So God calls his time. God says, all right, go up to the mountain, you're going to pass away. But before that happens, God says, but there's one more thing. One more thing I want you to do. So again, thematically or conceptually, what's clear here is that this war against Midian, now, if you know anything about mystical text, you know that very quickly it's going to cease to be about some ancient nation called Midian, and it's going to be about the concept of what Midian is in my heart and in your heart today. So that Midian needs to be battled against by whom specifically? By Moshe. And of course, we're going to understand what that means within us. Okay? But again, on a simple level, before we extract it and explain what that looks like, what we understand from even the simple verses is that although God had told Moses that he was going to pass away, necessarily before he does so, he has to fight this war. Moses has to be the one to lead this battle against Midian. Let's continue, while in the future, other wars would be waged by Joshua. Many wars were waged by Joshua in the time following Moses' passing. This war was not delayed until after Moshe's death. So he's again pointing out that it could have very easily, you could say, well, who else was going to lead the battle or lead the war? The answer is Joshua could have led. He led many other battles, many other wars. So why not this one? Seems to be clear, it seems to be clearly indicated here that this battle, this war against Midian had to be led by Moses. Moshe was personally required to conduct, page 2, the war against Midian, to muster the men for the army, and so on, etc. In other words, he had to be the one to lead the battle, he had to be the one to gather together the army, he had to be personally invested in this battle, and without putting a question mark on it, the question is, why? Why? Why did Moses have to do it? Why couldn't it have been done by Joshua? Who cares who the leader was?
Moses had to get rid of everything they thought was wicked.
But again, there were other nations. So look. So in the parentheses now on page 2, he addresses maybe kind of what you're talking about. Now, one might offer the explanation. Again, this is parenthetical because it's an answer or an approach that he's not going to end up with. But he's saying you could have answered. One might offer the explanation that all matters that preceded the entry into the land of Canaan were directed by Moshe. Remember, Moses got them to the border. So anything along the way was handled by Moses getting across the border and beyond, that was Joshua. So you could say, well, Midian lived to the east of Israel. So that's why Moses had to do it, because he did all that stuff. He got them safely and securely and helped them traverse all of the lands and battles and wars up until the border. So Midian was outside of the border of Israel. And so he had to take care of business again. And Joshua, it wouldn't make sense for Joshua to step in now at this point. Moses took care of everything up until the border, and then Joshua from the border on. So again, one might offer the explanation that all matters that preceded the entry into the land of Canaan were directed by Moses, such as the war with Sichon and Og, other nations, these were kings of other nations, and the distribution of their land to the tribes of Reuben and Gad. Consequently, there were 2.5 tribes, that received some portions of land on the other side of the Jordan, which is another discussion unto itself. So Moses was involved in those battles and those wars, as well as that distribution of land. Consequently, the war against Midian was also waged by him in the natural course of events. So you could say simply, the answer to the first question that's asked in this discourse, which is why did Moses do it and not Joshua, is because, well, Moses did all the stuff, anything that preceded the entry into the land of Israel was handled by Moses, so this is one of those examples. However, he says this is not a sufficient answer. However, the verse that commands him to, quote, exact the retribution of the people of Israel, afterwards you shall be gathered, implies that it is of particular significance that this war take place in his lifetime. The fact that the verse connects it so tightly, wage this war, afterwards you will die, again it doesn't say die, but you gather your people, right after you will pass away. The fact that it puts it together in such proximity in the same verse indicates That it's not just because that's what Moses did. He did all those battles. No, it's because there must be some sort of thematic connection between Moses and this war specifically, that it has to be done by him in his lifetime.
Yeah, because before he was gathered up, heaven, he had to clean his slate. And this happened while he was there. This didn't come up after he was there. They're not other battles that were going on there.
Right, you could say that. Yeah, the provocation that Midian did was when he was the leader. So now he has to finish.
Clean it up because he knows that he's going to, want to, not leave it let them create their own havoc.
Right. No, you could. I understand. You could definitely say that, but he wants to get a little bit deeper to understand again the thematic connection. Why is this battle, this war, specifically tied into the passing of Moses? And here's a second point. Secondly, and after I read this paragraph, I'll try to clearly explain the difference between point 1 and point 2. Secondly, the verse seems to imply that the root of Moshe's soul would attain perfection as a result of this war. That Moses' life purpose would be completed with this war. Hence, the Torah states that after he exacts retribution from Midian, he will be gathered to his people. It is known that the death of a tzaddik is not a negative occurrence, but rather the highest possible level of elevation. This is a bit of maybe a new concept, but the passing of a tzaddik is not I guess it's sad, of course, for those that can no longer see the tzaddik, but for the tzaddik, him or herself, it represents the pinnacle of accomplishment, i.e., it's the highest possible level of elevation reached after one's work in the world, has been completed. What is death, if not the ultimate culmination of a person's purpose on earth? Especially a tzaddik, right? Somebody who lives a life but leaves some unfinished business, but time to go. So on some level there's a culmination, but it may not be 100%. But if we talk about a tzaddik, who the definition, let's just give this definition of a tzaddik, is someone who did complete their life mission, the entirety of their life mission. Let's just call that a person a tzaddik. So upon their passing, what does it mean? What is that moment of what does it actually mean? It means that their job on earth has been completed. That's a very high moment. Most of us, when we're faced with a monumental task, like a really important job, and you finish it and you do it well, how do you feel afterwards? Or that moment of completion, how do you feel? Sad or happy? You feel happy, you feel elated. So the moment of a passing of a tzaddik is actually, again, on a spiritual soul level, a joyous time, not a sad time. Again, I understand the sadness in the morning, obviously, right? I mean, that we don't need a class, we don't need a Chassidic insight, mystical insight to explain why we mourn when someone beloved passes away. That we know, right? That we know from our own experience, right? That we know. But what this text is teaching us is there's another aspect, especially when it comes to a tzaddik, and I think with everybody on a certain level, because even if a person didn't fulfill their entire mission, certainly they did a lot, and passing represents the completion of some measure of their life's purpose. But certainly when you talk about a tzaddik, the passing of a tzaddik represents the culmination of their incredible life's mission, and that's on some level, not the whole, not the entirety of it, but on some level, it is a moment of certainly elevation. Highest possible level of elevation reached after one's work in this world has been completed. Let's continue inside. Upon finishing the task ordained for him by the divine wisdom, one then rises to the ultimate heights at the moment of one's passing. So again, and it's not gender specific, but he's saying that when a person finishes the job that God gave him or her, one then rises to the ultimate heights at the moment of one's passing. The person's passing represents the ascension, the completion of the task, and wow, the soul is uplifted. In this context, the verse, exact the retribution of the people of Israel from the Midianites, afterwards you shall be gathered, refers to the perfection of the root of Moshe's soul through his service during his lifetime, enabling him to rise from level to level. Again, that's a lot of words there, but let me explain what that means. He says, based on this notion, that the passing of a tzaddik, the moment of the passing, represents the culmination of their life's mission and the elevation of the entirety of their being, of their soul. So therefore, when the verse tells us, when God tells Moses, exact the retribution of the people of Israel from the Midianites, and then afterwards you shall be gathered, i.e., wage this war, and then you will pass away. What does it mean? That your elevation, your culmination, is tied into and dependent upon this war against Midian. And his soul will only ascend, or when will it ascend? With this war against Midian. And all of this then must be understood on both levels. Why did this war have to be waged specifically by Moses, by Moshe? That's point number one. And point number two, why would his soul attain perfection through this? Again, there's two angles on this. Number one, why does it have to be in his lifetime? And why is his passing hinged upon it? Passing, i.e., the culmination of his life's mission. Again, two different points. Number one, why did he have to do it specifically and not Joshua? And number two, why is the entirety of his efforts in this world, he lived exactly 120 years. Why his 120 years were tied into the culmination, the finishing touch, if you will, of his life, which represents the finishing of his job and the elevation of everything that he touched and was involved in. Why was that specifically tied into this war and not something else? Again, two kind of the same, but two different questions. Generally, it's the same. What's the connection between Moses and this war? But specifically, why did it have to be in his lifetime? And why is his whole purpose of being tied into this war? The Midianite war.
Yeah. So are we, I'm puzzling about the second question. Are we now assuming that the two are correlated, or are we questioning whether...
No, we're assuming it's correlated, and the question is, what's the logic behind it? What's the rationale? What's the explanation for it?
Okay.
That we're assuming the correlation is because the verses tell us the correlation. The verses tell us, God said to Moses, wage this war, lead this war, and afterwards your soul will be, you're going to pass away. And so the question is, number one, so the overall question is, what's the connection? Specifically, why did Moses have to do it and not Joshua? And number two, why is Moses passing, i.e., his soul perfection, culmination, life's mission, completion, tied into specifically this thing?
I think though my question was that even though we're saying this will happen and then that will happen, doesn't necessarily assume that they're related. So it could be this is going to happen, then this, but rather, or if I'm misreading it, this will happen therefore.
That's the premise that he's working with.
So his premise is that there's
in the
a
discourse.
therefore, even though it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because you could say it's giving a time marker. Right, you could say it's just a FYI. You're going to do this, and then this is going to happen. No connection. But the fact that it's in such proximity, the juxtaposition in Torah, the way he's learning it is, there's most definitely a connection between the two, and that's what we're questioning and exploring.
So that's
but yes,
the premise going
that's the
forward.
premise. That's the premise that he's starting off the whole deal with.
Has there ever been any, I want to say not challenge, but any other consideration of the relationship?
He cites the premise for this. If you look back to page 1, the premise for this connection is cited in footnote number 3 from the Midrash, which goes back 2,000 years. Again, look at the second line of the actual discourse after the verses in italics. It says the above verse seems to indicate that the two are interdependent, which means not just, right? For only after, and look at footnote number 3 on page 1, Midrash Rabbah, beginning of Parashas Matos. In other words, in the Midrash, it states that clearly that we have not just FYI, after this is going to happen, but no, these two are somehow connected. And he's questioning the connection. So if they're actually connected, what's the connection? Why does it have to be done through Moses? And why is Moses' whole, it's not just the last thing that Moses is doing. The last thing is significant. The last thing is the culmination. Why is this the culmination? Why is this the apex, the pinnacle of Moses' career, of his career, is too like, of his whole life's work is the war against Midian. It's not just the last thing he did. It is the last thing, but it's not just chronologically the last. It's almost the most important, or the culminating, the finishing. Yeah.
I'm wondering if the connection is the idea that Moses has a direct line to God, And the idea is if we keep our direct line to God, then we're going to have these sort of death and rebirth experiences in our own life. So we're going to have these battles that we have to fight, and it's going to sort of, part of our character is going to die off as we keep our pure connection to God.
I like that. We're going to explore in this discourse specifically what is the midjan that you and I are battling. What is the midjan?
And then part of
Well, you're
that
speaking in
God.
general terms, right? You're speaking in
Yes.
general terms. He's going to get very specific. What does midjan represent? And therefore, what becomes a focal point, a major focal point of our efforts and our battles, our internal battles. Internal battles. This is not about this entire, and we're just starting this today, this entire discourse of 32 chapters, I should have mentioned this before. The first 20 were taught on Simchat Torah 121 years ago. In total, what was given for publication were 32 chapters, which, of course, is the numerical is equivalent to the Hebrew word lev, which is heart. To me, it's not surprising. A discourse about love, a series on love, is 32 chapters. Makes a lot of sense. But anyway, the short of it is, no one needs to find a midjan. It's all about the inner midjan. It's about that inner battle that we're waging. But it's going to be very important to define the midjan and where that challenge comes from inside, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, on a cosmic level, cosmically, and then gain the tools to effectively muster our inner Moses to be able to fight that, which will then represent the purpose of all of our being. That's kind of like the short, like the where we're going with this, but without it being fleshed out. Who else?
Yeah, I was going to say, so Moses symbolizes that awakening where you want to be free of bondage, and then you start this journey and you don't know where you're going to go with it, you don't know what's going to happen. And then if this was the last battle before entering the promised land, then that's
This
so
is
we're on this journey, like you were saying, and then this thing culminates.
Yes, I just got a little bit of goosebumps when you said the last journey before the promised land, because
Or the last battle.
yeah,
Maybe.
because maybe for us this is the final frontier also.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is what we need to work on.
Yeah.
And when I say maybe, I don't really mean maybe, but I'm just being nice.
That's rhetorical, maybe.
Yeah, maybe this is what we need to work on. Maybe if we really want Mashiach,
Yeah.
which is a world free of bad stuff, maybe this is the final battle. And I'm not saying maybe. I know I said maybe. I don't really mean maybe. I need to mention something else. This discourse was first said on Simchat Torah 121 years ago. It was repeated for a second time a week and a half or 2 weeks later on the Shabbat of Noach. So it's Simchat Torah, and then we read the portion of Bereshit, which we read yesterday in synagogues around the world. And this coming Shabbat is Parshat Noach, about the flood, right? Human beings not being so cool with each other, and the flood, and Noah's Ark, and the animals, and all that stuff. The Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe who authored this text, repeated it for a second time, taught it again on this coming Shabbat Noach, this coming Shabbat 121 years ago. And from time to time, it was republished and retaught. It was republished in 1948, and again at other times, and again in 1996. And this was known to be one of those discourses that was repeated when it was necessary to share the message of camaraderie, of love, when there was an atmosphere of the opposite. And so I think, again, when the Rebbes chose to teach it, that was with their wisdom and with their timing. I'm not going to put myself on that level, but it felt right to me to teach this at this time. But you should know this is one of those texts that is meant to be pulled out and studied and really taken to heart when necessary. In other words, whenever necessary. You know, like those boxes in case of emergency, break glass type thing. All right, I think we're there. Chapter 2. We're moving at a quick clip here. Well, I want to start chapter 2, and we're going to close it out. We have a few minutes left. I want to start chapter 2 because it raises there's a question here that I was thinking that some of you may have noticed. Oh, you know what? Let's just do this together. Look back at the quote that with which this began. Did anybody notice an inconsistency within the rationale for the war? What's the rationale? What does God tell Moses, and what does Moses tell the people? Why are we fighting this war? What does God tell Moses? Whose retribution are we exacting?
Yeah, the people.
The people. And what does Moses tell the Jewish people?
Of God.
Right, of God. You see that? Moses switches the message. God says, fight the battle for your own dignity. And Moses says, God said, let's protect his dignity. You notice that? Notice that old switcheroo? Moses, the faithful messenger, pulls a fast one and says, well, it's the time that we have in front of us, right? God says, exact the retribution of the people of Israel from the Midianites. The Midianites harmed you. You got to fight back. And Moses says, arm men for the army from among yourselves, that they may go against Midian, to exact the retribution of God from Midian. Midian messed with God. Now we got to fight. Well, which one is it?
It's beautiful because when we're trying to get over the things that imprison us, we're doing it for God.
Okay.
And then God will have us do it for ourselves.
I also think that we might look at it as, this is not where we're going to go with this in this discourse, but if we're exploring this question, it's also like the greatest fight to be in a relationship is, you love me more than I love you. No, you love me more than I love you, right? To do that, the other is like more. You see what I'm saying with that? Like it's not I love you more than you love. No, that's a negative, right? Yeah. I do all this stuff you don't do. But no, you're so good to me. Who am I? No, you're so good to me. Who am I? Right? Like so, God says to Moses, I love my people. You have to take care of them. And Moses says to the people, we love God. We got to take care of God. We got to help. So it's like the greatest. But all of these are beautiful explanations, but not necessarily the one that's going to be given here. But let's jump in. Chapter 2. Looks like chapter 11, but it's chapter 2. Page number 3. We're going to just start this, get a few paragraphs in, and then we're going to break for the week. It is also necessary to understand more questions. It is also necessary to understand the nature of the war against Midian. The principal reason behind it was to exact retribution for Israel from the Midianites, rather than to acquire their lands, right? This was not conquering land to make it Israel adjacent, right? This was not at all a geographical, type of war. This was simply because they had caused tremendous harm amongst the Jewish nation, and this was simply exacting retribution. Again, for a discourse of love, that the premise is a verse of retribution, is interesting. Nonetheless, remember in the final analysis, or in all of the analysis, it's not going to be about a Midian external thing. It's going to be all about what's going on inside. Fine, but that's the basic rationale for it. It's not a land thing. It's about retribution for Israel against what the Midianites did. For the Torah implies that the land of Midian did not become part of Israel's inheritance. The Jewish people never conquered and never acquired the land of the Midianites. They kept on going until they got to Israel. This is in contrast to the land inherited by the tribes of Gad, Reuven, and half of Manasseh. I mentioned before the 2.5 tribes, which had belonged to Sichon and Og, which were mentioned before as two of the other nations which the Jews warred against. As Rashi explains in the phrase, Ataros and Divan, which were cities that Jews had settled in, which had belonged previously to Sichon and Og. Thus, the principal reason behind this war was retribution. So again, there were other wars, he clarifies, that were about getting land outside of Israel. That was good for grazing, whatever, for those 2.5 tribes. They had their own calculations, their own thing. But this was not about the land. This was about the principle of the matter. On the words, the elders of Midian in Parashat Balak. This is very parenthetical. Ramban Nachmanides comments that the territory of Midian was actually part of the land of Sichon. Accordingly, Midian was included within the land inherited from Sichon, and hence the war with Sichon was not completed until after the war with the kings of Midian. There is one opinion amongst the commentators, Nachmanides, Ramban, who says that no, that the battle against Midian was also about the land, and the Torah generally puts it together with the land of Sichon, which the Jews did inherit. But again, However, the literal meaning of Scripture does not support this view. So he says there is a dissenting opinion amongst the commentaries, namely Nachmanides, but this is not the normative opinion. This is not the simple explanation. The simple understanding of this war was it was a war for the dignity of the Jewish people against the evils, if you will, that Midian had perpetrated, and it was not about a pragmatic consideration of land. Now, let's continue. It is also, so that itself is a question. What was the point? Just about battling Midian? For what? There's no utilitarian purpose. There's no land that's being acquired here. So what? It's just to stand for principle? What kind of war is that?
Well, they had to cross the land.
No, they could have gone around.
Really?
Yeah. Oh no. They had already. They had already navigated that. This was in the aftermath. This is going back, unfinished business. So the question, the question that he doesn't again put a question mark on it is, what kind of war? If it's not a practical, pragmatic thing for land and to transform the land into a Jewish land, then what's the point? It is also necessary to understand a seeming contradiction. And this is what I said a moment ago, and we'll wrap it up with this question. When God speaks to Moses, Scripture states, exact the retribution of the people of Israel. Yet Moses tells Israel to exact the retribution of God from Midian. So again, why is the narrative being switched? God says it's about the people, and Moses says it's about God. Well, will the real reason for this war please stand up? Like, why is it actually happening? Okay, fine. And he asked another question. We must understand what the retribution of God actually means. In addition to the contradiction, what does it mean to exact the retribution of God? I understand what it means, the retribution of the people. Midian had literally engaged the people in sin, and caused about a plague that ravaged tens of thousands of Jewish people that were killed. But how was God harmed in the process? So what does it mean to exact the retribution of God? What is Moses actually telling the people? Let's get an army, let's fight against Midian to exact God's retribution. What's he talking about? That's going to be the next question that he develops over the next few paragraphs, but we're going to stop right here. So again, to recap, we have several questions, and this is very common to mystical discourses, that you begin, like I said, with a passport, with it as a point of entry into the core, the deeper discussion, and we use it from scriptural verses. The questions, if I will summarize, which I will, the questions are as follows. Number one, what is the connection? What is the conceptual connection between the war against Midian and Moshe's passing, which is divided into two specific questions? Number one, why did this war have to be waged by or led by Moses and not, for example, Joshua? What's the connection between Moshe and this specific war? Number two, why is Moshe's passing, i.e. the culmination of his life efforts, tied into this war? Number three is, beginning of chapter 2, number 3 is, what kind of war is this if no land was to be acquired? Number 4 is why the conflicting rationales. Whose retribution? Whose war? Who are we fighting for? Is it for the people or for God? And number 5, what does it mean to fight for God anyway? 5 questions so far. And all of this is paving the way for something that is phenomenal and absolutely relevant. A lot of this discussion will be about baseless hatred, sinat chinam. I want to share with you one insight that I just learned a few weeks ago from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said the first temple was destroyed. The first temple, Jewish temple, was destroyed because of the 3 cardinal Jewish sins: idolatry, immorality, and bloodshed. So the Jews were engaged in very negative behavior, so the first temple was taken away. That exile lasted for how many years between the first and second temple? 70. 7 decades. The second temple was destroyed because of infighting, hatred amongst our ranks, sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Now, no one ever said, I hate someone for no reason. Everyone has a reason. But we call that baseless hatred, because that reason's not really a good reason. Everyone says, no, of course I don't have baseless hatred. I have really good foundations for the hatred. Said everyone ever, right? Everyone says that all the time. But that's what we mean by baseless hatred, right? So, baseless hatred, second temple was destroyed because of infighting, friction, animosity, hatred amongst our own ranks. How long has the temple been lying in ruins?
Wow.
Almost 2,000 years. You see which one may be, I can't say more important, but I just did. I said it by saying I can't say, but I just said it. You see which one has greater weight? Okay. So, again, this is going to be about where does the hatred come from? Where does the animosity come from? Where does the judgment come from? Where does the friction come from? Where does the tension come from within us, within our souls, within the cosmic levels of reality? And most importantly, how do we heal that? How do we become more loving, accepting, embracing human beings? Make sense? All right. I'm excited to be on this journey with you. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel. I cut the recording, guys. All right, we'll have to put on the track of applause. No, I'm kidding. Thank you. That's very kind. Are there books? This comes from a book that is out of print. Currently, I found it on Amazon for like $80, $90. Someone's selling an old copy because they can. So that's why there's a wonderful resource called HebrewBooks.org, where they got permission from the publishers to scan, because in Judaism, more than making a buck on a book, it's about sharing Torah. And so this is also available, this text is available on Chabad.org, but in like a web format. In the book format, it's scanned and available on HebrewBooks.org. So I've just taken it and printed out. I did the first, I think, 5 chapters.
What's the title of the book?
It's called On Ahavas Yisrael.
Okay.
On Ahavas Yisrael. If anybody wants a direct link to it, either the book, the title of the book, the Chabad.org thing, just email me, and I'm happy to send out that link. So yeah, I did the first 5 chapters here, and and then we'll just keep on rolling out more. I just figured like a whole thing would be a lot of paper, you know. If you want me to hold on to these copies, I will. If you want to take it home, you can. Please bring it back so we don't double up on our efforts to on our printing. All right. A few quick announcements before everyone goes. Number 1, this week we're launching a new course called Jewish Secrets of the Supernatural. Angels, demons, ghosts, spirits, Shindalids. If you don't know what that is, come to this course. Souls, afterlife, near-death experiences. All of this will be explored from a Jewish perspective. The teacher is Mrs. Nomi Freeman. She is incredible. She's a wonderful teacher. Just moved here from LA a few months ago. And she will be teaching this 3 Monday nights starting tomorrow night her husband is Tzvi Freeman, who is the editor-in-chief of Chabad.org and written many books. She's a scholar as well. And she's teaching this 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Also, next week we're starting Warrior to Warrior. 6 weeks on feeling better. Feeling better. Less anxious, less jealous, all that stuff. All negative emotions, shame, guilt, sadness, all that stuff we're going to be speaking about from the wisdom of Tanya and other sources, modern psychology. If anybody is a doctor or knows anyone who's a doctor, this is available for 15 CME credits for medical professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, licensed social workers. Anyone in health or mental health fields can get professional credits from, like legitimate professional credits from this course, up to 15 credits. This is approved by, does it have the accreditation here? Why doesn't it have it? Let's see. Oh yeah, ACCME accredited, APA approved, Albert Einstein College of Medicine approved, etc. So this will give you credits, and if your specific field has credits that might be recognized by this, right, could trigger your credits, then you can look into this. I'm happy to look into it. I'm happy to look into it with you to see if this could pertain to you. But if you know any doctors or therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., that could use some credits and would appreciate this, then invite them to this course. 6 weeks. We teach it Tuesday nights and Thursday afternoons. We already have, I think, 60 people signed up for it, so it's going to be a very popular class. So join us. It'll be a lot of fun.
One or the other.
Yeah, or you can mix and match.
Okay.
You can do it Tuesday nights at 8, Thursdays at noon. You can always mix and match. If you want, you can come to both classes and then you can teach it. I mean, no, I'm kidding. No, so you can mix and match. We have different menus. We have like kind of more of like a fruit and pastry platter Tuesday, bagels and lox Thursdays, because it's more lunch. So whatever, maybe do it by the food, however you want to do it, but everyone's invited. Oh, and also one thing that I forgot. The first lesson is always free to try. You can always just come and try it out. No commitment necessary. Check it out, see if you like it. Try before you buy. That's it. The course is yeah, you get that. Yeah, you don't have to pay for it. The course is $99 for 6 weeks, including a textbook. $89 if you act now before Tuesday. It's $89. After that, the price jumps back up to $99. That's it. Oh, one more thing. Imbo. Where's that a copy? Oh, the Quantum Kabbalist. Quantum Kabbalist is coming Saturday night, November 9th, November 10th. I'm out of words. I've spoken too much this morning. So look at this and join us. All right. Oh, I believe.